Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Revolution Rev 89 student production today, Cinema Saturday. A lot of fun, and we had a rough movie this week. My name is Ben Case, and I'm here with Jacob Cisneros-Baca and Jacob Sandoval. Thank you guys for being on. We went and saw Replicas, a movie that is so hyped up by its fan base that it's got a 9% Rotten Tomatoes score. Now, looking at that before we went, I thought to myself, you know what? It can't be that bad, right? I mean, give it a chance. I thought it would be cool.
I knew it would be that bad.
You did think it was that bad.
Yeah. Why would you even waste your money on this, Sandoval? I know you put movies in a high standard.
It's not a waste because we got to inform people about it.
We
Somehow, this movie, I came in expecting a 9% good movie, and it still let me down.
Man, it was honestly mind-blowing how bad this was. Like, I don't know how to explain it. The whole movie, I was just sitting in my seat with my jaw wide open that I couldn't understand where they got these ideas and how it was so easy for them to go off topic and just there's like a straight line you can take as a filmmaker, and they managed to just like go completely opposite directions every 5 minutes. It was insane.
That took skill.
Boys, I am so happy that I did not have to spend my own money for a ticket to this show. Luckily, our good friend JSB able to give me a free pass to that movie.
Dude,
and
sometimes you got to sacrifice a lot to gain a little.
Yeah,
you know?
What a waste of an hour and 50 minutes. That's all I have to say. What a waste.
It's an experience. It was an experience to watch, just the decision. So for those who don't know the plot, here's a quick rundown. No spoilers. But the way this works is you got Keanu Reeves in the movie. He's the star. And he's working for a science company. His family dies in an accident, and he tries to bring them back. He uses cloning, uses robots, a whole bunch of stuff like this. But here's the problem. They had so many chances to do interesting stuff. I mean, like, the ethics of this kind of a dilemma, right? I mean, how could this be bad and apathetic? It was bad and apathetic. I mean, he made these decisions, and it looked like it didn't affect him one bit. And he made some tough decisions, man.
So,
we'll get into that in the spoilers, but, I mean, so crazy.
Some other characters even brought up the ethics of the situation, and they probably talk about it for maybe a minute or two, and then they just move on to something else. It's insane how the filmmakers weren't thinking of anything when they were doing this. So what's your guys' thoughts real quick? What do you guys think of the performances from the actors? Keanu Reeves, he's a pretty big actor. He's got some big titles behind him. Most of the other actors are pretty unknown in cinema.
You got the guy from the Verizon commercials.
Solid choice there.
I saw him, remembered who he was.
Yeah.
I actually didn't. I didn't know who he was. I just thought he was a recognizable face.
Yeah.
And then once you told me he was from Verizon, I was like, oh, man.
I kind of got T.J. Miller vibes from him, to be honest. I could see him as T.J. Miller.
Mm-hmm.
But, so, what do you guys think of the performances?
I think everybody's performance in this movie was terrible.
It was insane.
The thing about Keanu Reeves is a actor who really relies on his body rather than his actual acting skill. You can watch The Matrix a million times. Like, you're not telling me he was a great actor in that movie. It was just a cool movie because it was revolutionary and because just a very interesting movie. Very complex, interesting movie, and a lot of cool action scenes. This has 0 action scenes, I think. There's not one scene where there's actual fighting. Well, there was one scene you could No, they cut away from it. They cut away from that scene where there's actual fighting. And, yeah, it was a rough movie.
Oh, it was so rough.
Keanu Reeves is trying to be an emotional guy who is brooding and is dealing with grief. But it comes off of as Keanu Reeves just looking down.
Very insincere.
Right. You can't. It's an unbelievable. And I also look at the other actors and just not good either.
Oh, they're horrible.
I'm giving everyone an F except for the guy who played Mr. Jones, who turned out to have a bit of a role. He was kind of his boss for a little bit. I'll give him a D. He did a solid job. He took the terrible script and gave it some passion, even though it was probably... I mean, like, he has lines like, "My real name isn't Jones."
Oh,
How do you sell that line? I mean, like, for real.
Did he sell the line? Did he sell the line, Ben?
I
He
thought it
did.
was
He
hilarious
was-
that he tried really
He
hard.
didn't sell
Oh,
the
he
Out
line.
of all the
He-
actors in this and actresses in this movie, this sucks to say, but the robot in this movie showed more emotion than his family did.
I'm surprised.
I'm not even joking.
I'm surprised they all weren't robots in the end. Honestly, it felt like every actor, like there was something off. And like I was talking to Ben early in the showing, like when it was just starting, like, are they doing this on purpose? Is this something they're trying to
Was
plan
it a
out?
style choice?
But it wasn't. Oh, it was just so bad. Every actor was horrible, and every line they gave out, there were like these awkward pauses after each phrase that someone would say. Oh man, it was just very uncomfortable to watch. And like I said, my jaw was wide open the whole entire movie because it was just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe how bad it was.
It was amazing. I mean, it's like it takes a lot of skill, in my opinion, to have a movie that was that bad.
Yeah.
I was blown away from the beginning. So let's go around and give a quick rating out of 10. I'll start it out, and I'll get the ball rolling with a 1 out of 10
Oh
because
man,
I was not amused by pretty much anything in this movie, and I love good action. There was so much wrong with this movie, guys, and with that, it's one of those kind of movies, you know, you want to see it for the experience of seeing how terrible this movie is and that some people might have tried to make this good. But at the same time, it's terrible. It's
so
a
bad.
garbage movie. But you know what? 1 out of 10. I think that's generous.
I'd say that. Sandoval, what are your what would be your rating for this?
Rating of this movie, you know, not going to give out a rookie score. Whole numbers, rookie score.
All right.
I'm going to give this 0.9.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there is.
There you go.
Keanu Reeves' face was maybe only the positive thing in this movie. It's just,
Really?
just his face, but not his presence, because his presence in the movie was terrible.
It was. So, one thing that I wanted to point out before I gave my final score is the cinematography of the movie. I kept pointing it out every 5 minutes, but the angles of the shots were just getting on my nerves so bad. It was just all these Dutch angles. Like every other scene was a Dutch angle, and it like awkwardly zooming into the character's face. It was so hard to watch. Just the cutting and the editing and everything. And on the poster, it says that it was produced by the creator of Transformers.
And then big, it's like really big on the poster, right underneath the name of the movie.
So I think that kind of shows where they're getting their style from. So for a rating, guys, I'm going to go ahead and give it a -2.
a
because
-2.
A -2.
I was disgusted. I was in
Off the
shock.
charts. That's
I
off
was-
the charts.
And you guys can vouch for me. I was sitting in my seat with my hands up, freaking out how mindless this was. The CGI was ridiculously bad. The plot was ridiculously bad. The characters were ridiculously bad. Oh, it was -2 bad.
There we go.
It
I
was-
think that we all deserve a round of applause because we decided to stick it out for our listeners. You guys really matter to us because if not, we would have left, I don't know what, 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in? I mean, my goodness. That movie, the consensus from all of us here at Cinema Saturdays, terrible movie.
Don't see it. Oh, wait. If you want to see a bad movie, go to Netflix. Watch something for free. Don't waste your money on this. Oh, man. So, do you guys want to...
You know, I think let's go ahead and get into the spoiler review. So, if you haven't seen the movie and after what we said still really would like to see the movie,
You don't
now
wanna
is
First,
time.
what's wrong
Leave
with
the
you?
podcast and then come back
Right.
and then listen to it. We really appreciate it. So, guys, how about that John Wick crossover? That was dope.
That was pretty cool.
No, I'm just kidding.
I like how
there's-
he...
you gotta go ahead and don't check this out if you don't want to see the spoilers. So let's go ahead and get into it. So
Yeah, okay.
that plot, I would say, was the most strange plot I have ever seen. And I know we just keep harping on how bad this movie is, but the plot, I mean, we could literally just tell you the plot. Wouldn't have to point out the flaws because they're so obvious. I mean, it was that bad.
What I can't wrap my head around is how they couldn't stick with the storyline. They kept, like, jumping around to different plots. Like, they started off trying to transfer the brain to a robot, and then, like, 10 minutes in the film, the robot's not even in there anymore. It's not a part of the story. It's all about cloning all of a sudden. And
Which
then
they know how to do out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Like that night, he's like, "We can't do it." They do it perfectly.
They didn't even mention cloning anywhere in the intro, and then all of a sudden, this scraggly-looking friend has the power of cloning.
Yeah, the Verizon guy.
The Verizon guy.
Yeah, Verizon guy learns how to clone. He's super excited about that, and not only does he help his friend create his new family, but that's all he does. Helps his friend create a new family after making this major breakthrough, and then he's all like, "Yeah, I'll keep this a secret for you, even though my whole job is to clone something much bigger than a rat in a test tube." It's ridiculous.
It was one strange movie, and so one of my biggest complaints about this movie is we're literally 6 minutes into the movie whenever they crash their car. We have no connection whatsoever to his family. They meet, have this one awkward foreshadowing conversation where his wife's like, "You have a loving daughter, a loving son, a loving wife, and you are a scientist." And then they crash their car and die. Mm-hmm. It's that kind of a movie. I didn't connect to any of the characters before, which, of course, takes out any impact of those characters dying. So there was that scene where he's sitting there looking at his dead family, and it seemed like he himself was thinking, I mean, he had no emotions at all.
It honestly looked like he could care less about. Like, I don't even think he cried. I didn't see him cry at all.
He made some tough decisions. I mean, like, in this movie, I thought this was a creative plot point to have. They somehow only had 3 cloning chambers, and there were 4 people that died in his family. So he has to make a choice on which one not to clone and bring back. Now, this was an opportunity for a fantastic, real chance to show us the humanity of this character, to show us, how much that would weigh on you. I mean, if I were to be in this situation, I wouldn't stare blankly into a hat and then pick a name, but that's what happened, and it was the weirdest thing.
Right. And then watching him try to... what he does is he goes in and erases the memory of the daughter he can't save from the...
Which he also didn't care about, it seemed like.
Yeah, he didn't care. He cleaned up everything, and then it takes 5 minutes for the family to remember they had the daughter. It was completely pointless. Why even have that plot line if you're... In the end of the movie, you're going to bring her back anyway. Halfway through, you're going to have them remember. Everything seems like it didn't matter throughout this whole movie, and it was so frustrating because it intrigues you with all these ideas and thoughts, and it just throws them out the window instantly. It's insane.
And I'll say this, the whole thing where it's supposed... they're trying to make it seem like this father has to make a hard decision, but this whole entire time, since the beginning of him wanting to bring his family back, there's nothing but, in my eyes, is selfishness. He crashed the car. His whole family died because the car crashed. Granted, I don't think the car crash was his fault, but at the same time, he crashed the car, his family dies, and instead of doing anything, but all he wants is to bring them back. When he learns he can't bring them all back, he's all like, "I still want the other 3 back, and so I'm gonna sacrifice." And then it becomes this thing where he takes no responsibility when it comes to getting rid of the dead bodies. He tells
that was weird.
Tells Verizon guy, "Hey, Verizon guy, get rid of the bodies. I can't do it." And then when it comes to deciding which family member to choose to not bring back to life, he's like, "Hey, Verizon guy, you choose." And the Verizon guy finally says no after helping him drag the dead bodies. They drag the dead bodies to the work, back from the work, and then to the house.
Stole millions of dollars in equipment.
Yeah.
And they just brush it under the rug.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things where there's nothing good about the first 5 minutes of this movie.
There's nothing good about the whole movie.
Right. Well, but it's much more so when it's the first 5 minutes of the movie.
You got to get people hooked, and it was not.
It didn't get any... There's no emotional connection. There's nothing. I didn't feel a single thing for any of those characters, like Ben was saying, and I didn't care about Keanu Reeves because once he said, "You choose which family member I don't bring back to life," to the Verizon guy, one of his friends, instead of making the decision for himself, I was out. I was like, this character that they want us to care about is no longer a good character in my eyes. He's just a selfish character who can't take any responsibility for himself.
Yeah, it was horrible. And I hate the fact that they tried to throw in this extra plot where the company he was working for is some sort of evil weapons company out of
It's a
nowhere.
classic sci-fi twist.
And that the main bad guy, his boss, who was just like
My
this.
name's not even Jones. It was the cringiest thing, but
He was
I thought it was
somehow
funny.
in on it the whole time, and they throw in this ridiculous chase scene where they go to this hospital to get these trackers removed. And I couldn't believe how ridiculous it was, how these henchmen were chasing this family, and it made no sense how they didn't find them. It was ridiculous.
I mean, like, the trackers, it had them pinpointed. I mean, like, you could see. And there's this funny... I thought it was funny because of how stupid it was. They're, like, chasing him. They think they're there. It cuts to the family, like, I think they're right there. And then they open up the door, and it's this old grandma who's, like, sitting in the room. And it's like, wow, that was a good job, movie. Great job.
Yeah, it was just one of those classic bait and switch moves.
Zoinks.
Movies play on you where, they're about to catch the killer, and they're in a completely different building.
So they do all this work to remove these trackers, and then they try to make their escape to some random boat place, and the bad guys find them anyway. They just show up to where they were hiding. It was ridiculous. Why waste our time with all this junk when you're just going to have them find them anyway? I could not believe how much time this movie wasted, how much energy this movie wasted.
Wait, this movie had energy? I'm just kidding. Man, it was that bad, though. I mean,
So I think all of our favorite parts was the beautiful CGI. What's
we
your
gotta
thoughts, my
talk about
friends?
this, guys.
To defeat the main bad guy, the main character transfers his consciousness into a robot.
No, a copy of his consciousness.
Yeah, not
You're
his
right.
actual one.
You're right.
Yeah.
You also have to mention, before we get into this, they made us watch 3 cringy scenes where this machine sticks a knife, a little needle into people's eyes to get it. And they didn't cut away any of the 3 times.
Not
It was
at
there. I mean, it was like showed the whole thing, and I was like, are you kidding me with this? I get that you want a movie to be edgy, but this is not how you do it to make your whole people who are watching it uncomfortable. But, I mean, you mentioned it. They take this consciousness, put him in this robot, and this robot comes up and he starts like beating up people because he's supposed to be like Keanu Reeves.
But you know what's interesting? Okay, so in the movie when he copied his consciousness, it was a lot earlier in the film before they even knew who the bad guy was. And then when he activates the robot, it's a lot later. So in theory, how does the robot know what's going on? And this is just another plot hole. It doesn't make any sense.
You want to know the biggest plot hole?
Go ahead.
It's because the whole time they were relied on dead bodies to put into the robot to test it.
Yeah.
But it turns out if you just have a willing person who will sit through while their eye gets stabbed, they can transfer consciousness or copy
without giving up their own consciousness. You're right.
Consistently, and he proves it by doing it in a bathroom stall. And there's no repercussions. He doesn't go crazy. There's a scene where it looks like it hurts, but he gets a needle through the eye, so obviously it hurts. But other than that, it's not like his brain is gone. It's just essentially a flash drive. The needle is a flash drive you stick into your brain. That's all it is. And they acted like they had to use bodies to put into the robots, or they had to have dead bodies for consciousness to be copied. And then Keanu Reeves sticks the needle in his eyes, copies his conscious, puts it in the robot. And that's
a great point.
Messes up the whole entire story because it's like, why? Because the whole thing is Keanu Reeves is kind of getting heat at his job because they're getting bodies in, but he's not able to figure out the program to get the mind inside the robot until the very end of the film where he puts his own mind in a robot. But
Oh, and the robot CGI, the way it
we can talk
moved
about
was
this.
I don't know if you've heard of the movie I, Robot with Will Smith. It came out like in early 2000s.
great movie.
That was a great movie.
The CGI in that early 2000s movie of the robots looked so much better than what was in this 2019 movie. It was so cringy seeing the robot move. Even the robot, it looked like PS2 graphics, honestly.
Yeah,
PlayStation 2
Yep.
graphics.
Yep, you're right there. It was cringy to watch.
I don't know how anyone could take that scene seriously. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, he like grabbed a dead guy and threw him across the room, and it was just like, man, what are you doing?
Yeah, very intimidating scene, but then it was like, was it though?
Like, you know, in like, I think it's like Spy Kids 3 where they tried to go 3D and it was all just super cringy. Or like Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Oh,
it's
man.
all like, you know, discount CGI. I mean, it worked for that time. I mean, we're just like you said, early 2000s. But now you get to now and you put that CGI up against somehow Infinity War getting Thanos to look so real, or Vice making Christian Bale look like Dick Cheney,
or
this
even
crazy stuff going on in the movie industry right now. And then they come out with this garbage. I mean, it was laughable every time it was on the screen, and
it was
you can't
just
take it
so
seriously.
awkward. It was so awkward to watch. I don't know about you guys, but I cringed every time that robot was on the screen. It was ridiculous. And in the last scene, they have the audacity to have that robot in a suit turn around and talk. It was insane how oblivious these people are to how bad this movie is. I don't know if they thought it was really good or what was going through their mind before they approved this, or it went through the final stages. Like, I can't imagine what these people were thinking, and they thought that CGI looked good. This guy worked on Transformers, and say what you want to say about the Transformers movies, the CGI on there doesn't look too bad.
Right. The CGI in Transformers is really good. It's just the story that is very lacking.
Exactly. Yeah. And the producer of Transformers approved this crappy CGI. It is insane, guys.
All right, my last conversational topic here. So this movie, we were just mentioning it. There was so much angst over this girl, his daughter, his youngest daughter, that he's not been able to bring back, and he removed it from their memories. But guess what? 17 days after the movie ends, and it's not like he stays where he is with all the scientific equipment. Him and his family take a boat to a desert island, and somehow he found the cloning material to clone back his infant daughter, bring her back, and then the family love him for it. This is like, you know, one of those movies at the end of the movie where everything's all happy. It's the end of the movie. I was mortified. This guy's made this many crazy choices, and he's going to do it again with this girl that he's erased from his family's minds? Are you kidding me? I mean, I get that they wanted the happy ending, quote unquote, and bring back the cute kid, but it makes most of the movie, it invalidates whatever stakes there were. It's just crazy to have that at the end of the movie. And, you know, it just makes your skin crawl. It made my skin crawl whenever, like, after she's dead and she's laying there in the bed, his wife, and he lays next to her, it just makes my skin crawl. It was just that kind of a movie where they don't take the stakes of their own movie that could be really cool seriously. The thing is, for me, like, I give Sharknado a 4 out of 10, even though I think movie quality, it's about the same as this one. But the problem is that Sharknado is going off of a premise of a tornado of sharks. This movie has a good premise. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could make something awesome with this premise, with bringing up these ethical issues, figuring out, you know, there's a level of creepiness to it that you could do in a good way. But this is more of a bad, weird way. And for me, it failed on every stop. And like I said earlier, I said 1 out of 10. I stand by that, guys. This movie, hot garbage.
Hot garbage is perfect words for it. I still can't understand how they could take, like you said, an interesting idea and ruin it all. They went in the worst directions possible for every different scenario it had. It's truly, I speak for myself here, it's the worst movie I've ever seen. I've seen a lot of movies. I've seen a lot of bad movies. I like watching bad movies with my friends. This was the worst movie I have ever seen. That's why I'm giving it a negative 2 out of 10. Ridiculously bad, and like Ben said, hot garbage. Jacob, thoughts?
It is indeed the worst movie I have ever seen, and it just, the only good thing that could come out of this movie is if they started some kind of weird universe of bad movies.
I would never watch any new sequels for this movie.
But what happens if they decide to expand on that biotech company, Ben? They want you to.
It sure looked like they were setting up for a sequel. You're right about that. But there's no way anybody would.
No, they're definitely not. The whole reason they put that ending scene in there is because they were just like, they don't want
if it blows up.
What happened to the robot? Well, the robot's selling forever bodies, I guess, because they figured out cloning, which is ginormous, and I guess everybody's just gonna get away with whatever they did in that place, and it's just a really bad movie. I didn't like it. Happy I didn't have to spend my money to see it. Thanks, JSB.
No problem, man.
Yeah.
I hope you all enjoyed this podcast. I wasted my 2 free movie passes on this, so I hope you are enjoying this wonderful podcast.
Yeah, and if you ever do go watch that movie, say to yourself, well, this is us on the Cinema Saturday podcast. Thank you for checking us out. Check out the rest of our Red Midnight Productions podcast. We got a lot of cool stuff that we've been doing. Additionally, more of our movie podcasts will be coming out every Saturday. Be sure to check those out. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.
Have a good one.